presentation about capital punishment and the effects that imminent death has on people, but it turns out finding fictional books about capital punishment is kind of hard. So I did my presentation on more about death in general and how everyone has really different reactions to death, because death is something that everyone will experience in their life, whether it's from a family member or a friend or a co-worker. Everyone will know somebody who has passed away. And everyone reacts differently to death because we're all different people, we all have different emotions, and a lot of times when we think of death we just think sadness, and a lot of the time there's a lot more different possible emotions we can have. So one of the books I read was A Lesson Before Dying by Ernest Gaines, and that takes place in the 1940s, and it's about this black guy who was falsely convicted of murder, and he was sentenced to death row. And somebody in court had called him a hog, so he had no self-worth, he felt really bad about himself. So his godmother really wanted him to be happy when he died, so she asked the local teacher to talk to him in jail and to try and make him have self-value. And the interesting part was, his name's Grant, the teacher, and he didn't want to help him because he was like, why does it matter, because he's going to die anyways, so why do I need to take this time to help him? So he didn't do it for Jefferson, he did it for the godmother. And that kind of made me think about the whole idea that funerals are really for the living rather than for the dead. Because, like, religious views aside, you don't see dead people walking around their own funerals. That just doesn't happen. We have the living, and I read an article on this, and it's really just about how funerals are for the living rather than for the dead. It gives us a chance to be with family and help everyone cope with it, because everyone copes with death in different ways. So the other book I read was As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner, and this is about a really big family. There's like 5 or 6 kids, but they're really mostly adults, and their mother dies of old age pretty early on in the book, and so everyone reacts really differently to her death. Basically, the rest of the book is about trying to get her coffin to where she wanted to be buried. And everyone just reacted completely differently to her death. They weren't just all like sad. And even though they're all like related, they all reacted completely differently. Like one of them went crazy, one of them just didn't talk for the rest of the book. They had a lot of dialogue in the beginning and then just didn't talk the rest of it. One of them, the daughter became really obsessed with her own sexuality. And one of the boys became really like interested in carpentry, like that's all he like talked about for the rest of the book. So even though sometimes it may not, like, you might react to a death differently than somebody else, but you don't want to think that somebody doesn't care about it, because they're probably just coping with it differently. And since death is something that everyone is going to experience in their life, everyone's going to know somebody that passes away, we just got to keep in mind that everybody does react to death differently, and we just need to be there for each other and help people through these times. So yeah, thanks.